don't penetrate glass, concrete, as well as low frequencies. So that means that there is, again, a need for more installations. And I won't always say towers. We're doing rooftops, we're doing water tanks, we're doing all kinds of attachments, and towers are always the last resort. So will they come along with another technology at a different frequency that would foster another round of new towers? Typically, the prudent operator is always looking at existing facilities first. That's what we do when we design. We look at existing structures any which way we can, building new facilities. Case in point right now is the longest, most expensive route to go. It's our last choice. But when we have to, we make that argument, make that request, because we can't find a better solution. For this area, she talked about the Glentley Ranch. We looked at that 5 years ago and tried to make that work. Couldn't make it work. And so we're here today asking for this site. We've been after it for 2 years, trying hard every way we know to try and mitigate the visual impact. And if there's a next guy that comes along, I expect he'll ask to attach to our pole and try and make it work before he pursues another location. Another point I did want to add to Alan's comment was that looking at, trying to put this in perspective, this is a pole that's about 45 foot high. If you take the high side of it, the diameter might be as much as 2 feet. You're talking about roughly 100 square feet of visual material. If you look at anything else that could be approved without much of a discussion, a barn, a garage, a house, you're talking about hundreds of square feet of visual impact. So in terms of the amount of visual impact from an installation like this, trying to quantify it empirically to compare it to other things that might be appropriate or allowed, I think this is a fairly minor installation. So I hope that's answered your technical question and others.
Okay, other questions from the board? Supervisor Pinchas.
I don't want to be facetious, but the city of Ukiah just went through an issue on a flagpole, and they found out that they couldn't stop an individual. Maybe a person needs to put up a flagpole first with no permits, and then attach equipment for a cell phone tower.
Let's hope.
Thank you, Supervisor Pinchas.
Could I add a point? Gutney Ranch.
At this point, I'd prefer not to.
The nearest house is 1.5 miles away.
Thank you. Supervisor Smith.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch, you were referencing the guidelines, I believe, there a moment ago. Do the guidelines address the co-location issue at all?
They encourage co-location, and the applicants have said that by lowering this from 65 to 45, it's going to lessen their ability to fit another person on there, because I've heard it said in other hearings they have to have about 10 feet of separation between antennas. And aside from the frequency issue, I think you do have. I think Verizon operates in the same frequency band as Edge, and I'm sure that they will come in and they will argue that they have a right to compete with their competitors, and you can't infringe upon that, and they would have a right to put a cell tower somewhere in this vicinity. So there is, something to that argument. You could also argue that instead of going one tower at 45 feet, could 2 towers, way more expensive, but 2 towers at 25 feet at a different location, would that be a better fix? I don't know.
Well, it's questionable how much the guidelines are assisting in the decision-making on this, vis-a-vis the comments you just made. But, I think it's unfortunate that the industry's over here doing things, and then we're saddled with this very sort of nebulous set of components to sort of make a decision on. I mean, the co-location, it's sort of like, well, the frequencies don't work, so person A or group A is here today, and then, as you said, then the competition issue could come in, and then it's group B saying we want to be there. So I mean, I'm having some concern along the lines of to what degree is this tower really adding to the bigger picture? Is this the best way to solve this this gap issue? Is this the best solution set? Are there other ones? And the whole proliferation question continues to kind of rise to the surface, and I don't know that the information you have there is really giving us any answers to that.
No, I don't think it is, and I don't think we'll ever really catch up. We have tentatively, I believe, April 17th, we're going to go back to the Planning Commission with an update, stab at, if you will, of updating the guidelines. It's not going to change a lot, but we're trying to be responsive because I realize this is a struggle for you guys in the decision-making role.
And then the whole frequency question, then that comes along, and we're not in the driver's seat with respect to being anywhere close to being the decision makers on that one. And so then the frequency issue comes forward, and then, well, that's another thing that's just beyond our capability to sort of weigh in, but yet we're stuck with the permitting aspect. So there are just a lot of gray areas, and I'm not happy about that.
And this is, we're not unique.
I know. Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions or comments to the staff, the applicant, or, I'm sorry, the appellant, or to the public comments? Okay, seeing no concerns to those three groups, I'll close the public hearing at this point and revert the matter back to the Board of Supervisors for discussion action. Supervisor Delbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lynch, this is going to sound repetitive, I'm sure, because I've made these comments many times. The guidelines that applicants try to meet are guidelines that the Planning Commission put together. They were kind of a draft guideline. They've never been even seen, much less approved by this board, unless we took it upon ourselves individually to look at them.
Correct.
I have a little problem with that. If those are, to me, the analogy is our great staff policies that you've also heard me complain about on many, many occasions. We're making decisions or recommendations based on policies that the board has never had their hands on. That's a problem for me. Now, that said, as you proceed to bring that to the Planning Commission, my hope is that it will make its way up for the policymaking body to also take a look at and weigh in and then hopefully approve at some point in some fashion. My concern with those guidelines, and this is what I said last time we had this here, and this is why I made the motion to deny without prejudice, because I thought this was the issue that would be addressed. And I'm not very happy that it didn't get addressed, and that is the guidelines call for the siting below the ridge line. And to me, that's counterintuitive, because if you're going to put a tower up, you're going to put it up on the highest point possible to give you the best service. Now, obviously, there's some quirks to that, as we heard today, but as a general rule of thumb, that's where they go. If you're driving down a road, you ought to be looking at the road, not up on the ridge line. And if your house is down below that, you're usually not looking up at the ridge line, you're looking out. That's the problem I have with the guidelines. I've had that problem many times. We have heard many appeals sitting up here of cell towers. And I think this might be one of the reasons why there weren't a whole lot of questions, because we've gone through very similar arguments in the past. And this particular application we've heard in the past as well. I gotta be honest with you, I don't, and I know we don't have any legal maneuvering we can do on the health issue, but I don't buy that one. That's just not something that I've seen any evidence to warrant that as a good argument. And there is a gap here. I own two phones. One's Edge, one's USL. On a good day, when the planet's all aligned, I can actually get a USL signal down through the canyon to Highway 20 and then around. But that doesn't occur every day. I have no Edge service.